Hey all, welcome back to another video here with me, Rich Aesthetic. So last summer I spent a bit of time with my grandfather setting up his iPhone. He had just gotten a new one and it wasn't syncing with his laptop. So, doing the whole iCloud for Windows download and things like that. With those changes and getting that stuff set up, I also took the opportunity to teach him about like the new passwords app and as well as just answer a bunch of his other questions. And that process had me thinking about what we as techies can do to help our parents and grandparents better utilize their phones. Because I'm a believer that these are tools, and I do my best to use them for, productivity and work and whatnot, rather than going down rabbit holes. So before we get started, as always, check out the chapters down below, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's get into it. So chapter number 1, pretty obvious, but if you don't know what they need, just ask. Just because you may not see what it is that they're trying to do doesn't mean that they're not actually trying to get something done. We're not there just to redo their workflow to be like ours, because honestly, power users tend to go over the top with things. And if you're not used to the system, it's not going to be as beneficial for you or for them. And this probably goes without saying, but don't force any unnecessary changes. Listen to what it is that their workflow is. See if there is something, a step or two that is really unnecessary, and then suggest or show another way to do it and allow them to decide if that would work better for them or not. Tip number 2. Prioritize their needs. So if they're asking for the wallpaper to be such and such photo, just do that. First, get it set up so they're seeing what it is that they asked for. They see, oh, that's cool. That's something I've always wanted to do, but I didn't know how. And they get to start seeing these features and seeing the way they want their phone to look. And maybe then they're going to even be more receptive to other things they can do, such as, photo shuffle wallpapers. I think the issue with, software that is, always changing and some parts feel stagnant, such as the fact that iOS kind of looks the same more or less for many years now. It lets people who aren't, sucked into the ecosystem or the Apple news or any, tech news, whirlwind, to believe that there's really nothing new because, well, it doesn't look different. And the thing is, there's, hundreds of features, big and small, being added every year and throughout the year. Yeah, nobody can know it all. Even I am watching, hidden tips and tricks videos because I want to make sure I'm learning as much as I can about the system. Tip number 3, which is to get creative with their hobbies. As you're learning about your, parents and grandparents' hobbies, you have the potential to, on, just the human level, connect with them more. But then also share your own interests in technology. So it's just, a fun time. You get to both be discussing things that you both enjoy and, learn about each other's interests. But let's say they have the hobby of stargazing. There's a lot of great apps out there. And one of the big ones that Apple has featured is called Sky Guide. So you could show them this and they probably already know where the constellations are and whatnot if this is their hobby, and that's just stuff they would know. However, the cool thing is it also tells you, when like the next eclipse is coming, and you can have a widget on your home screen. They also have a widget for just, space related news. You can get notifications for when the ISS is going to make a flyover. And you can customize it to like how long you want to be notified before the event actually happens. So you can go out and hope, maybe catch it, which they may not use like the main feature of the app, which is like the AR star map. However, they can use the other parts of the app as a tool to facilitate the more analog methods of going out and, stargazing, which is kind of cool. Or another one, let's say they like gardening, or, when they're hiking, they like looking at plants. There's an app called Plant Identifier, which, may help them look at or discover new plants out there or confirm what it is that they believe they're looking at. And I think the app has a lot more features that I just don't know a lot about. But my point here is, as you are learning about their hobby, take some time if you don't know anything about, the app space in that category, and see if there is anything there. So yeah, to sum it up, take advantage of the opportunity to learn about their hobbies, as well as do some research about, the app space there, doing your own hobby, and then continue the conversation later so you can keep connecting on this. They may not ultimately use the app due to, preference for the analog method. However, I think the experience of getting to that point of, finding the techie way could be fun for the both of you. All right, so those were the main tips. The next few chapters are going to be on more, widget or a widget from app suggestions, like more specifically. The first one I want to talk about is, the Photos widget and the Photos wallpapers. As I mentioned earlier, Photos has great widgets that, parents, grandparents may enjoy having. By default, the Photos widget from Apple just does featured photos. Now, some of you may know other apps where it's very easy to set specific photos to be featured, but the Photos app can be set to an album. And by creating an album with just the photos you would want or they would want in the widget, that would allow them to have their own kind of photo shuffle widget without having to pay money for other apps, even if the other app may do it easier. If you're not doing iCloud family sharing, they may not want to pay for this app. Who knows? Maybe your parents would actually enjoy curating or already do enjoy curating their own albums, so you can show them how to even set up a widget stack with a bunch of different Photos widgets featuring different albums, whether it was trips they went on or different family outings and events and, so on and so on.
Initially, you're gonna put a Photos widget on your home screen. Then you need to put a second Photos widget on top and select an album, the correct widget size to add yet another Photos widget to that stack. And then you have a stack of Photos widgets.
Another option, however, could be the Photo Shuffle lock screen wallpaper, and I actually think this option will be more popular with less tech-driven family members. You have some family members, they're just looking to get into the phone and get their work done. They don't need, the widgets making everything crazy and whatnot. With the Photos Shuffle wallpaper, it stays out of the way. They can have just the app icons on the home screen, no widgets, or they can even have fewer app icons, just the bottom couple rows that they can reach with one finger, one thumb, and then they can see the photo up above, again, without the widget thing being there. And I came to that conclusion because my grandma, for example, she's less, on her smartphone and stuff like that, prefers more analog methods, even prefers the home phone and whatnot. So when she's reaching for her phone, she's intentionally grabbing it to get a task done, whether that's, send a message or call someone. So in that moment, when she picks up her phone, she may see the photo from the lock screen or on her home screen, and she may enjoy that. But she's not, exploring her phone where that widget, that Photos widget, is gonna be seen, especially if it's not on the first page. My grandpa, on the other hand, spends a bit more time on his devices, so he's more likely to see, the Photo Shuffle widgets that he has set up. Next up, a super powerful feature, of course, weather, the weather app, weather widgets. So this is gonna, vary again, grandparent or parent to parent, but if your family member is super active, the weather widget, having that, more up and out, because it's going to be faster for them to see what the weather is rather than having to go find the app or dedicated app slot for that widget. You can introduce them to the small widget variant, which is mostly for the day, high, low temperature with conditions, versus the medium one that's showing the next few hours, versus the week view in that large one. Figure out what their use case would be, if at all. Again, in the context of my family, my grandfather's a pilot, so having that week view would allow him to see what days would be good to go flying. Next up, Find My. Now, this is going to be more helpful for those who are maybe living farther away from each other, especially my family. We're super international. I'm living here in China. Some of my friends are in other countries like Japan, and then one of my other friends is back home. Family's all back home, but we're talking like Minnesota, Kansas, Colorado, Florida, California. Find My is pretty cool. It allows you to be connected with your, closest family members and friends. So you could set this up for them, especially for, parent, yourself to your parents and your parents to your grandparents. I think people get this confused, especially like older generations. It's not about keeping tabs on anybody. It's not like that, right? It's more of a safety thing. But also, like, especially for Gen Z and Gen Alpha, it's becoming a thing of I think the way some techniques are putting it is like it's like a status, like, oh, you're not really friends unless you're sharing location. But even that I don't think is really the case. There's something about, especially when we're so far apart, myself and my friends, I feel like it's like we're still together. Not actually, right? I'm not actually with my friends, and I know that. I'm not deceiving myself. But there is something to that is different than not having the location being shared, and if you're not messaging every day, you're gonna feel even further apart. I don't know, that's just my take, and feel free, I think that's a good thing to have a discussion about down in the comments. What do you think about family sharing? Do you do it at all? Do you do it with your friends only, or family only, both, neither, and why or why not? Next up, the clock widget. Two things here. One, just basic clocks. You get the digital and analog clocks. So maybe they prefer analog, so throw that on there for them. Again, going with the international aspect that I was just speaking about, they have world clocks. Now, Apple's stock world clock widget is, in my opinion, is kind of bad. It's just the analog clocks. You don't have the option for digital. But there's this awesome app called World Clock, which, if I remember correctly, and there will be a note on the screen if I'm wrong, but for free you can get the World Clock widget from World Clock that has digital times, and then you can customize it to have whatever cities you want, which you can do with the stock one as well. But the stock one doesn't have digital times. And even cooler, you know how the World Clock in standby mode on the iPhone has the whole world, and actually on iPad it's like that too, and World Clock has that kind of view in a widget form, which is kind of fun. It's not something I would have prominently on my home screen, but I would have it in like a medium widget stack, for example. Next up, the Health app. In the latest iOS and watchOS versions, Health app has this new feature called Vitals, or I should say collection of health data that you can easily see in Vitals, showing stuff like your blood oxygen level, your respiratory rate, your wrist temperature, sleep duration, and then your resting heart rate. And it'll show if it's in its normal range or not. That's normal range for you. So if you haven't measured much, this may not be showing anything for you yet, but after a few weeks of taking in, your different health data, you should get this populated and you'll see if you are in your own normal ranges or not. But if your grandparents are wearing their watch at night, and if they're not, it's something I would try to convince them to do. It just allows them to see if their body is in check or not. And the cool thing is, especially like with wrist temperature, it kind of, a lot of people online have been sharing how they saw that something was off on their charts, and then later that day they were feeling sick. So especially for your grandparents out there, I think having the Vitals app on the home screen is super important. Last up, for those of you fully in the Apple ecosystem and who have parents and grandparents in the Apple ecosystem, get the batteries widget out. It is so annoying to have to manually check your battery on your watch, check it to the control center, phone, top right status bar, and then anything you have connected to your phone via Bluetooth that's sharing battery data, like your AirPods. Also, you got to check that and the settings. Get the batteries widget. You can put it into the today view or hide it in a widget stack, and then it's a quick swipe to see if you have to charge anything for the night. Super helpful, especially for myself when I forget to see, the 10% remaining alert that pops up on my watch, because I've kind of starting to ignore these haptics, and that's kind of worrying. Maybe I need to turn off some notifications because I must be numbing myself to them. Towards the end there, not super specific, because so much of this is dependent on what your family members' preferences and hobbies are. So hopefully this video does kind of put this into your mind, and the next time you get together, which is coming soon hopefully for Thanksgiving, right, you'll take a moment to make sure everybody's up to date. You're the guy, you're the Apple genius. And if you enjoyed the video, I appreciate you watching, especially if you made it to the end. Comment a wizard emoji if you are still here. While you're down there, hit that like button and subscribe. And until the next one, Rich Aesthetic out. Peace.